What is up, knife friends? Carter here with Edged Mindset. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to hang out with me and talk knives. And that is exactly what I want you guys to do. I want you to leave comments. I want you to go into my community section, post pictures. Let's blow this knife community up. Let's get it huge. Let's get it more huger and more awesomer than it already is. Let's get people that are knife curious into the game. Let's get them posting content, buying knives, trading knives, hanging out with people, going to shows. Let's make this thing big. That's my goal anyways. We're taking a look at the Orion from Kansept Knives or Concept Knives. I don't know. I've heard it both ways. I'm going to say it how it's spelled, Kansept, because, yeah, I want to be a rebel, I guess. That's what I want to do. This is a knife that is designed by JB Stout. I have been a fan of JB Stout's work for a long time. He is a US-based knife maker. His claim to fame is he is, for the most part, a fully machined knife maker, meaning he does the majority of his knife making is done by I don't know if it's CNC or a end mill. Regardless, it's machined, right? Which is why you get things like this fully machined primary bevel here. Now he's not alone. Grimsmo Knives does it. A lot of modern knife makers do it. Brian Nadeau, he does it a lot. Some makers kind of hide it. They use smaller milling and then they stonewash and you can hardly tell that it's milled. Others make it more prominent, just like this. But I've been a fan of his work for a long time. I followed him on Instagram for a long time. He's kind of part of that whole Tennessee knife maker thing that popped off with Jeremy Horton and all those. And he's still around and kicking, doing awesome stuff. I used to own a custom, I forget the model, but I used to own one of his customs, had to sell it, needed the money. So I'm jumping at the chance to get a production version of his work, and that's exactly what we have here. Now, I'll go over specs here in a second. I just want to yap a little bit more. I just got my honorary degree in yapology. I've got it hung on my wall, so I am ready to go. I am a professional yapper here. Yeah, let's talk into how close this is to one of his custom knives. So it's like, it's cool. Like, it's a cool example, because it takes his main design points, right? These milled edges here. So he doesn't like to do contoured scales. He likes flat scales. But in an effort to make it not feel like a brick in your hand, he does this really deep milling around the edges. And it definitely works. Like it feels kind of like a contoured knife. You don't feel these edges at all. Works very well. This design pattern with this big milling, of course, the primary bevel we talked about, are all telltale signs of a JB Stout knife. However, this one's got more shine to it. It's got more sheen to it. It's using like a glass blasted finish with a blue anodization over it. This also comes with black hardware and bronze titanium. You can get it in a weathered black with a Damascus blade. Some have a thumb disc. Some are flipper only. A lot of different options. There's also a blue one with satin finished on the flats on everything, which looks pretty cool. So a few different options on this, but his customs look a little different. They're kind of chalkier, they're kind of rougher, and a perfect example of that is this other collaboration he did with Riot Knives for his Snappy Boy. So this is more indicative of a real custom knife from JB Stout. You can see how it's got similar design language. In fact, almost the exact same design language, all the same milling patterns and basic styling, but it's more of a, kind of chalky, rough user type knife, as opposed to this one, which has a little bit more, refinement and class. And that is one thing that I really like about owning both of these. I get the aesthetics of JB Stout, but completely different presentations of what he does. And I'm kind of realizing for the first time, these are almost exactly the same size. Like really, really close to the same size. I don't know if it's worth doing a full comparison video. Oops, wrong one. We're reviewing this knife, but maybe I will. We'll see. Okay, let's go over the stuff. Let's go over the specs, right? Let's get that out of the way. Let's do the boring stuff, and then we'll get to more of the fun conversational stuff if I can find my handy dandy measuring tape here. So about 3 1/4 inch blade. Overall length is about 7 1/4. Not a big boy. Not a big boy. When I showed this in some shorts on YouTube in my unboxing video, I got a lot of people saying it was too small for them. I had some people asking I've got extra large hands. Will it fit my hands? 4.1 ounces, if you can't see that right there. So nice and light. Do we have milling inside? We don't even have lightning holes in here. That's pretty impressive. It is fairly skinny and it is fairly thin. Let's compare us to a Paramilitary 2 right here. Paramilitary 2 dwarfs it. Well, I don't know about dwarfs it, but Paramilitary 2 is larger. Let's compare the closed position. This sucker is, man, this is so good in the pocket. Look at that. Look how compact it is. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. Beautiful stuff. It is quite a bit thinner than the Paramilitary 2. Kind of hard to tell, these are contoured scales, but if you compare it, like, I think that's pretty flat right there. This is a lot wider, so it's going to carry way better than a Paramilitary 2 in terms of how much space it takes up in your pocket, how it feels, weight, all that stuff. Here is a Shark Pup, not the 80-20.5. This is the smaller Shark Pup, so it is bigger than this. It's probably about the same size as an 80-20.5, but I'm just guessing there. Pivot to pivot. Here it is next to a Chavez 229, quite a bit smaller. And just for fun, let's do Kiradashi from Cold Steel. Love this knife. Excellent box opener. If you just want something to throw like by your front door to cut stuff open. What did I do to this edge? Man, I need to sharpen this up. I have destroyed that thing. I'm sitting here saying how awesome this is, and it's got edge damage that I don't even know how I did that. But look how tall that bevel is. This thing is pretty, not thin behind the edge, but thin at the apex, if that makes sense. But yeah, great knife. Like, these are super inexpensive. You can buy them on Amazon for like 20 bucks or something, 15 bucks, something like that. Great little knife to throw wherever as a beater to grab. You don't care if you lose it or somebody steals it. Not a big deal. I mean, it always sucks if stuff gets stolen, but you know what I mean. All right, back to the knife at hand. The steel on here is S35VN. These are numbered. This one is 149 of 300. It's called the Orion. We've already talked about this primary bevel here and the milling pattern. Now, that was probably the biggest point of contention with this knife when I showed it. That's way too bright. That is way too bright. There we go. When I showed this online, that of course grabs a lot of attention, right? It's pretty striking. Not everybody has seen a primary bevel done like that. But a lot of people were concerned on how well it would cut. How do you sharpen it? How do I make heads or tails of this? Listen, you're never going to notice this. Never going to notice this. A lot of people asked, does that cause problems as you're cutting through material? No. No human, does it on a scientific, not molecular, but like a scientific level? Could you notice additional drag when pulling this through certain materials that are gripping it? Probably. Would a human ever be able to discern a difference between this and this if everything else was the same, right? If this behind the edge was just as thick, this is thinner, this is going to slice better, it's full flat grind. But I mean, if things were the same, would any human be able to tell a difference? No. Absolutely not. I have noticed zero difference in terms of cutting through things. It's not that big of a deal. When you're cutting things, it doesn't matter. Most of the cutting's happening on the secondary bevel. If you're cutting through something that has some, like meat or something that's actually going to be kind of sliding along this primary bevel, you will notice zero difference. It is a little harder to clean though, because you will get some gunk in there. It's not super difficult. Like if you use any sort of towel, it's just going to get right in there and clean it out. But it does take some extra wipes. So keep that in mind. If you're doing food prep or something like that, this might not be the best choice because you might be getting some debris stuck in here. And then even though it's S35VN, it could potentially cause some rust issues. So I'm not going to say that this is the best way to do a primary bevel ever, but for most people, you're not going to notice a difference. As far as sharpening, there's zero difference. You just sharpen it like normal. You can see how it's got that wave pattern on there. You don't need to adjust anything. You don't need to do anything different. You sharpen it like any other knife, and it will get just as sharp as any other knife, assuming that you know how to sharpen knives and you're good at it and and all those other things. And, you know, same in terms of steel and all those things, right? Okay, anyways, now that that's out of the way, that was kind of the number one thing people talked about. I wanted to bring that up. Now, in terms of overall cutting performance, it's not a slicer. It is really thick behind this edge. It's got fairly thick blade stock right there. In fact, pretty thick blade stock, especially considering how thin the handle is. So it is a chunky boy, and this isn't even 3/4 ground. This is more half ground. Like I don't know if you just caught that, but I totally just stabbed my finger with this knife. It is now bleeding profusely in my other hand. So we're going to try to finish this review with one hand. Else, I am going to scrap this whole thing and do it again. But man, I am almost 11 minutes in this baby. I don't want to give up. I want to keep going. So it is really thick behind the edge. It is not a slicer. It is more of a hard use bruiser's type knife, which is kind of what JB Stout is known for, is actually taking the concept of overbuilt, hard use knives and shrinking them down, right? For the longest time, if you want a hard use, rough and tumble, thick behind the edge, can take anything you throw at it knife, it's going to be massive. It's going to have a 4-inch blade. It's going to weigh almost a pound. It's going to be this huge knife. JB Stout took the principles of hard use and applied them to knives that are way more pocketable and carryable and easier to maneuver and use and will not pull your pants down. Really nice fuller on here, just looks classy. I love this poon on the top. It is it hollow ground? It feels hollow ground. Let's take a look here. I mean, it does kind of feel hollow ground. It is super nice, super sexy. I love a good clip point though. It's one of my favorite style blades. Man, this thing looks good. You got satin flats going on here. You've got blasted on that primary bevel as well as the poon. This one has the thumb disc right there for opening, which is another question I got on my short. What is that disc for? It is for opening the knife. You can thumb flick, you can reverse flick, and of course, you can use the flipper there. This is not a front flipper. There's no jimping. You can't do that. So this is kind of an old school, regular opening mechanism knife. We're running on bearings on this bad boy. Nice and smooth. It was a little rough out of the box, and it was just that detent ball kind of wearing over this satin finish right there and creating a nice smooth track. Once you get some oil in there, get it broken in, this is absolutely butter. Unlocking is nice and easy. You can get your thumb right in there. You've got some good chamfering on that side. The only thing I wish is that there was chamfering on this side as well. It's not bad. I get in here no problem, but it does feel a little tight at times. Haven't slipped off or hasn't caused any actual issues, but I would prefer chamfering on both sides of the lock bar there. Somewhat similar to this collaboration here. You can see chamfering on both sides. So, man, that red right there, that's not rust. That is, I put way too much KPL in here the last time I lubed it. Wow, I need to wipe that up. But I wish this had chamfering on both sides there. I think that would be a little bit nicer, but still not bad. Nice blue anodization on here. They got a good blue color. It's not too bright, and it kind of contrasts nicely against the brighter blue hardware that's on here. Got a backspacer with a simple gear pattern. Pocket clip works fantastic. Really good retention. Nice and stout, but not overly stout. Goes in and out of the pocket. Deep carry for a milled titanium pocket clip. I know I've seen some, like Devo Knives does a really good job making milled titanium clips that are deep carry, but this is about as close to that as I've seen outside of some really, like, you know, obvious attempts at doing that. You're really not hanging out too much. You're about right there. So not bad at all. I'm not a big fan of the deep carry anyway, so it's perfect for me. Let's talk ergos. This feels fantastic. So a lot of people wondered, how would it fit in your hand? I get a 4-finger grip on this thing, no problem. I've got long fingers and I've got a pretty wide hand span. My fingers, though, aren't that chunky. So if you've got really thick fingers, you know, it might be a little bit tight. But even if I take kind of like a roomie, like I can see how I've got room up here at this top choil, you know, I'm still 4 fingers. Like, it doesn't feel bad. But right here, it actually feels really, really good. And the knife just kind of fits right in this crease here. So you're going to notice that it's thin-ish, but it doesn't feel weird. Like it feels good, and it feels like you have a really good grip on this thing. This knife kind of redefined what I was thinking about in terms of smaller knives, right? I've always kind of avoided smaller knives. This one kind of changed my mind, and I was like, this is pretty nice. It just disappears in your pocket. You get a full hand grip on this thing, and it has more than enough cutting edge to function well. I mean, the cutting edge on this thing is probably about the same as a Strider S&G cutting edge, just because it doesn't have a massive choil, just has a sharpening choil on there. I couldn't recommend this knife more, honestly. Like, if you see this and you say that looks cool, I wouldn't hesitate to pick one up. Now, if you see this and you're like, I don't like that, I don't like the way it looks, then yeah, obviously it's not for you. I just wanted to make sure, and really the only things I would point out on this are how thick it is behind the edge. You know, if you are looking for a laser slicer, this is probably not it. It is plenty sharp. The secondary bevel is wide enough that it cuts pretty well, but it's not going to be the sliciest knife ever. It really is kind of meant for an everyday carry, all kinds of use, multi-purpose type knife. The best thing about it too is the price. Retail MSRP on this is $189, and you can find it cheaper than that brand new, right? A lot of places have discount codes. White Mountain Knives, WMK for 10% off. I got mine from Chicago Knife Works. I got 15% off. And of course, you can always get them on the secondary market as well. So for $160 for a titanium frame lock of this caliber that looks this cool and performs this well, go buy one. I mean, if you want. If not, I don't care. Once again, I bought this with my own money. This was not sent to me. I have no ties to JB Stout or Kansept. In fact, this is my first Kansept knife I've ever had. Very nice, very impressed. All right, guys, comment down below. What do you think of this? And don't stab yourself in the finger by looking through the viewfinder instead of looking in real life when you go to move your hands around. It really messes with your depth perception, and you think you're clear, and then you stab yourself right in the finger with this wicked tip right here. Look at that thing. That went right in there. I hit it pretty hard. All right, guys, catch you later. Talk to you later. See you later. Later.